morally kind of kills me not being able to take care of myself, because I live in a crappy house with my dad. We don't have running water right now. I can't afford to even buy insulin, man.
Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk, and Sanofi controls over 90% of the world's supply of insulin and nearly 100% of America's insulin supply. They set the price for insulin, and people with diabetes pay it, or they die. Like Joshua Wilkerson, a 27-year-old who couldn't afford a $1,200 insulin copay, dies after trying cheaper version. This is a story of how 3 companies monopolize life and let poor people die. This is a bottle of insulin, and it costs $250 if you don't have insurance. Most people go through 4 to 6 bottles a month, which adds up to around $1,100 a month or around $13,000 a year. $130,000 every 10 years and $650,000 for 50 years. Now, if this doesn't sound a lot to you, then you're a lot richer than I am. And your parents are probably proud of you too. But if you are an average person, then this amount is about 1/3 of your paycheck or the cost of your rent. Now, you might say that it's just the cost of making insulin.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
Sadly, that's not the case, because the same bottle only costs $35 in Canada. The actual cost of production is around $3 to $6. 40 times the price of production for a medicine that people have to take for the rest of their life. These 3 companies, Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk, and Sanofi, make hundreds of billions of dollars every year, while people like Joshua Wilkerson, Alex Smith, Jada Renee, and many others die every year because they can't afford it. But to truly understand how evil and greedy these companies are, we have to talk about the history of diabetes and the discovery of insulin. Diabetes is a long-lasting health condition that affects how the body makes or uses insulin. Insulin is a protein that allows your body to use sugar as energy. People with diabetes either can't produce insulin or have a hard time using insulin. The effects of this range from a loss of consciousness, stroke, heart disease, high blood pressure, fatigue, damaged blood vessels, foot problems, eye problems, pancreas malfunctions, dry skin, and many more. Currently, there are 37 million people in America with diabetes. Over 100,000 diabetics die each year, and it is the 8th leading cause of death. There is no cure for diabetes. There is just one treatment, and that is insulin. In the early 1900s, diabetes was an incurable disease with no treatment. People diagnosed with diabetes only had a few years to live if they follow a strict diet of basically eating nothing. However, in 1921, Frederick Banting and Charles Best found that diabetes can be treated by giving people insulin taken from a dog. This miracle drug would end up saving millions of lives. They ended up receiving the Nobel Peace Prize for this in 1923. Knowing how important insulin was to treating diabetes, they decided to sell the patent for $1 so that manufacturing companies can mass produce it and save more lives. At that time, Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk, and Sanofi were lucky enough to get permission to produce insulin. However, what was supposed to be a gift for humanity became a greedy monopoly for the pharmaceutical companies. The monopoly of insulin came about through 3 factors of lucky breaks and cunning business tactics. The first factor is no generic insulin. Insulin is not a synthetic product. It is a biological product. This difference makes it a lot more difficult to create biosimilars, or in other words, generic forms of insulin. How much harder is it to make insulin? Well, this is a formula for aspirin. It has a total of 21 elements when you add up all these numbers. This is the formula of Lipitor, a cholesterol-reducing drug. It has a total of 75 elements. And this is the molecular formula for insulin. It has a total of 738 elements. It has 10 times as many elements as Lipitor. Which means, in terms of difficulty, it is like saying if you can build a bridge across a lake, you can build a bridge across the ocean. I mean, probably the same thing, right? It is not the same thing. It's at least 1,000 times harder to make insulin than to make Lipitor. This is why there are many different generic drugs of aspirin and Lipitor, but there are no biosimilar drugs of insulin. Actually, scratch that. There is one biosimilar drug to insulin, and it is called Semglee. And it came out in July 2021, exactly 100 years since the discovery of insulin. That's how hard it is to make a biosimilar of insulin. Because of the high difficulty in creating a biosimilar of insulin, these three companies were able to use that to their advantage to control the insulin market for the past 100 years. But before we continue, let's talk about our sponsor, iTrust Capital. iTrust Capital is the world's largest crypto IRA. Did you guys know that you guys had to pay taxes on your crypto gains? However, there is one way, and only one way, that you guys do not have to pay taxes on your crypto gains, and that is to open a Roth IRA. But the thing is, most Roth IRAs do not allow you to buy and sell cryptos, and those that do are very, very expensive. But not iTrust Capital. Business Insider ranked iTrust Capital as the #1 crypto retirement account for low fees. So if you currently don't have a Roth IRA, then you should, okay? You definitely should, because crypto now is going to be exploding within the next decade, and you do not want to pay taxes on those gains. So if you guys are interested, use my link below and get $100 of Bitcoin rewards when you sign up with an initial deposit of $1,000. Thank you very much, and back to the video. The second factor is patent evergreening. Most patent for drugs only last for 20 years. After the patent expires, another company would make a generic drug and the price would drop due to more competition. However, insulin has been around for 100 years and the original insulin patent has long expired. But if you want to produce and sell insulin today, you wouldn't be able to. Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk, and Sanofi still have patents on insulin by doing something called patent evergreening. Patent evergreening is when they make another version of the drug and patent the new version. But because the new version is so like the old version and that other companies cannot make the old version because it overlaps with the new patent. It's like having an iPhone 6 and an iPhone 11. When the patent for an iPhone 6 runs out, patent for the iPhone 11 covers up the iPhone 6 and it prevents other people from making an iPhone 6 because they're essentially the same thing. The third factor is business. Obviously, when companies make billions from their drugs, they will hire lawyers to fight lawsuits, lobby politicians, and make under-the-table deals to keep making more money. And when you monopolize a disease like diabetes by producing almost 100% of insulin in America, you can increase the price as much as you can get away with.
Old boy, I've got a great idea. Between us, we control 70% of the country's soap sales.
Yeah, but quiet. Let's see what's cooking.
I smell trouble. Let's raise and fix our prices. Controlling 70% of the market where we do cleanup.
Terrific. We'll make millions. Millions. Go.
Quiet.
Okay, Sam. It's a deal.
You'll be sorry.
This graph shows it all. From 2001 to 2015, all of their insulin prices increase at the same time and by the same amount. And when another company wants to get into the insulin business like Merck did in 2016, Sanofi sued Merck, and Merck exited the insulin game. But Merck didn't exit the way that you might think it would. Sanofi actually paid Merck to stop making the drug so they wouldn't have more competition. Merck said, after a comprehensive assessment of the current and future market environment for insulin glargine, we made the business decision to terminate our agreement on the commercialization of Lasduna, pen and vial. So, how much did Merck receive? Well, we don't know, but it was more than the $155 million in termination fee that Merck had to pay its Korean partners. So, even if someone does make a biosimilar, these companies will just pay them off to get them out of the business. This way, they can keep their monopoly and control the price. This is the percentage of the world's insulin market owned by Novo Nordisk. This is the percentage owned by Sanofi. This is the percentage owned by Eli Lilly. And this is the percentage of insulin market owned by other companies. These three companies combined dominate 92% of the insulin business. And because they monopolize the industry, they can set whatever price they want. This monopoly is how they can charge $250 on a $6 drug that they got for free 100 years ago. So, how much money have they made from their insulin sales? Well, from their financials, last year, Sanofi made $4.5 billion in revenue from their diabetes product. Eli Lilly made $4.5 billion from their insulin products alone. When you combine it with other diabetes products, it comes out to $12.5 billion. And Novo Nordisk made $56 billion. That's right, $56 billion from their insulin products alone. When you add in their diabetes product, it adds up to $113 billion. A similar case happened in 2015 where Martin Shkreli, CEO of Turing Pharmaceuticals, bought the rights to produce Daraprim, a drug used to treat toxoplasmosis, which affects around 2,000 people a year. After Shkreli bought the rights to the drug, he raised the price from $13.50 to $750. And social media went crazy. He was the most hated person on the internet at that time. Because of the huge backlash, people started looking into his background and they caught him on securities fraud. He is currently serving 7 years in jail. Now, for Shkreli, the most he could have made was a few $1 million a year from increasing the price, because a patient only needs to use it for a few weeks. Insulin, on the other hand, is a $27 billion a year business, and their customers use insulin for the rest of their life. Yet, no one really cares about how these companies increase their prices by 50% over a span of 5 years. Currently, there is legally nothing we can do to force them to lower the prices. They have the patents and they can charge however much they want. Despite all the bad press, the drug Daraprim still costs $790 right now. The only thing we can do is raise awareness on their actions to put enough social pressures on them so that they do not keep increasing the price. As you can see here, because of all the insulin coverage, the cost of insulin has dropped by 10% since 2019. Obviously, that's not a whole lot of money, but at least they're not raising it. Hopefully, in the future, we can get to a place where no one will have to die of diabetes because they can't afford it, just like the founders of insulin dreamed of.